You are amazing. You're incredible. You're so important. And there's a story inside of you. Not just any story. It's a story that moves. If you don't tell your story somewhere, there's someone that won't see the inner potential that they have. If you don't tell your story, there's someone out there that won't be able to see the greatness that's deep inside of them. If you don't tell your story, then someone won't be able to see your hero's journey and how you came through your pit. And potentially, they won't see that they have a hero's journey inside of them. There's a voice inside of you that moves. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling you today to a movement of voices that move. I'm a certified coach. And yes, my company is Abundance Coaching, but Abundance Coaching is just a name. What it really is, it's a lifestyle that I choose of living with abundance. And the only way that any one of us can live with abundance is by replacing scarcity with abundance. Because true abundance really is believing that you were created as more than enough, that you have more than enough, and that more than enough is coming to you in the future. And when you recognize that scarcity holds you and debilitates you and keeps you in place and keeps you in one place, and it discourages you from really going out there and using your voice, you'll start realizing that when you replace that with abundance, that overflow and possibilities and motion and movement can happen. This message that I have for you today, it's bigger than me. And usually, to be honest, I don't get nervous when I speak in front of audiences, but this week wrecked me for part of the week because of the immensity of the message. But it's not my message. I had to come to the conclusion of that. But today I agree to you that I will speak the voice that is coming through me that I feel called to speak to you. Will you agree with me, though, to be open to the voice that's inside of you and have courage and to be bold with that voice? Will you agree? Right on! Excellent! What you just did is you made an agreement with me, so I have to hold my end of the bargain and call you to action a little bit later in this talk. Uh-oh, I heard that. We're all Toastmasters in this room. And I have enjoyed being a Toastmaster for a dozen years. And I keep on coming back for one major reason. I want to contribute. And each one of you might have come to Toastmasters because you wanted to become a better communicator, you wanted to be a better leader, or potentially you wanted to just have a group around you and to belong to something. But deep down, I'm willing to call you out and say, hey, listen, is the real reason that you really have something more to contribute? But in order for you to awaken that voice and to really use that, you need to do one thing. Who wants to know what it is? All right. You need to awaken the wild lion within you. When my son was 2 years old, I used to tell him, I said, Josiah, we're going to the zoo. And he'd look up at me and he'd be like, Dad, this is going to be fun. And I'd say to him, so what do you want to see at the zoo? And he'd say, I want to see the lion, Dad. And I'd say, Josiah, what does the lion say? And he'd look up at me and he'd say, roar! And as a proud dad, I'd say, yes, son. He says, roar! And then we'd say, what does the goose say? He'd say, honk, honk. What does the duck say? Quack, quack. And we'd go through the animal noises. And then I'd bring him through into the zoo, and as a proud dad, I'd rush him to the lion cage, and we'd look at the observation window, and we'd see the lions in there. Not even paying attention. And I'd explain to my son that these are majestic creatures. These are the king of the jungle. And he'd be like, yeah, Dad. And after a while, he'd go like this, can we go see the geese now? And I'd say to him, I said, son, this is an expensive exhibit. The geese are free. They fly here every year. But he'd want to go see the geese because they were wild and they'd honk back at him. So we'd hang out with the geese, and I really wanted to go to the lion. One time, I was so disturbed by this because I had realized that in the 2 years that I had brought my son to the zoo, not once has he ever heard the roar of a lion. My son is now almost 4, and he still hasn't heard the roar of a lion. There are many stories that were told this weekend. Stories of a house that was burnt and how someone had to rise above. Stories of a daughter whose dad taught her that she can. Stories of a man who was touched by a great gift with a baby. Stories of someone who felt that they couldn't do very much or they wouldn't belong, but after they became a Toastmaster, that they found newfound potential and they had a crowd and a pride of people that came to their side and they did immeasurably more than what they ever thought that they could do. And these stories impact us. Those stories empower us. In this last few weeks, I've also had stories of friends that are close to me. Stories of people who've lost their business and don't know what to do. Stories of depression and anxiety and despair. Stories of a man whose wife may pass away sometime soon. It just doesn't seem fair. Every one of us has a story. And if you look around the room, just look around for just a moment. Imagine that each one of us have a billboard around our necks, and just look at your neighbor. And some of those billboards, they might say, I just want you to believe in me. I just want you to say that I'm enough. I want you to tell me I want you to tell me your story. I crave to be led. I want your voice to move me. Every one of us has a billboard. And right now, I'm calling you to not just use your voice to move, but I'm calling you to a movement of voices that move. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we awaken the wild lion within us. Because if we don't believe in ourselves and we don't have that who am I kind of feeling, and we don't go out there with conviction and power, how are we going to move and inspire audiences all around the world? So in a little bit, I'm going to bring you through a visualization, and it's going to help you awaken that wild lion, and you're going to do what you said that you were agreeing to do and be bold and courageous. Because your story matters. Before we get there, you may wonder, Scott, why are you so passionate about this topic? I mean, I could come here and be like, okay, well, you have a voice that needs to be told. And if you tell your story, then you'll move audiences. But that doesn't come through, does it? Conviction is what comes through. And when you have conviction for something, you're willing to share it with anybody. And when you have conviction for something, it has to connect here first. And you have to convince this little guy over here that it's important. Because what often happens is we intellectually get it. Yes, Scott, I agree. There's a lion inside of me that needs to be awakened. But up here, we're like, yeah, whatever. This guy needs to be convinced. And you know how you convince it? By physically manifesting something. Like a roar. Now, you don't have to roar. What I do to actually manifest myself to get into this state, because I truly want to connect with you, is I go out in a private place, and some of the speakers in here might be able to relate to this, and I go out and I say, Scott, you are designed to be here. You are called out to give this message. And you are the one that's meant to deliver this message because it's inside of you. And if you don't deliver it, they may never hear that they're enough. They may never hear that there's a wild lion inside of them that needs to be awakened. They may never hear that that voice is so important that somebody's life could be changed if they finally use it. And I get myself into this state. And when I'm in that state, I know that if you were Brad Pitt, I'd have the same conviction. And if you were Brad Wall, I'd have the same conviction. If you were Bill Gates, I'd have the same conviction. Because it doesn't matter if they're smarter or more intelligent or more experienced than I am. I have conviction. And that conviction is who I am and what comes through me. And that's what's important. And that's how you awaken the wild lion that's within you. And that's how you tell your story, because your story is so important. So who's in agreement with me right now that conviction is very important with telling your story? Right on. I'll tell you how powerful that is when you're on a stage. Everybody stand up. Okay, now everybody sit down.
Seriously?
Yes. When you're on a stage, you have the power to influence. Influencing people to move. Like that. So who's ready to awaken the wild lion that's within them? Who really is ready? Yeah! We're going to do visualization now, and you can really stand up. Let's get up right now. And now imagine right now with me as you're silencing yourself and you're putting yourself in a place of recognizing that you're in a home. And in this home is a big, huge screen. And you have all the entertainment that you absolutely need in this home. You have the walls that you need. You have all of the shelter that you ever could want to protect you from the elements that are out there. Inside of this home, you realize that you have all of the medical attention that's even brought to you. You have all the provisions. You have everything that you think that you need, except for one thing. You could never run. You can never really be wild. You can never fight, and you can never roar. And then you take and you look inside of your hand, and what's inside of your hand is a key. And in that key is what was always in your hand. That's the key that will unlock the door to your cage. Because you've been a tame lion for far too long. And what you do is you put that key inside that door. And the first thing you do is, with your motion, is you put the key in the door and you fling open the door. Right now. And now as you fling open that door, you take your first step into the wild. And you're scared. And you look behind you. But when you're looking behind you at the comfort that you used to have and you used to enjoy, you recognize that inside that comfortable space was just pain. Because it was holding you back from something. It was holding you back from being able to use your voice to move and the conviction that's deep inside of you. And now as you walk into the wild, you realize that as you're out here, that you have a pride of other wild lions right here with you. And that you don't have to do this all alone. And as you get to this place, you realize that you need to connect your brain and tell your brain that it needs to move. And you tell your brain that your brain is so powerful when it's connected with that gut spirit of the wild lion. So you're going to, for once and for all, awaken that wild lion. And on the count of 3, you're going to roar like you've never roared before. 1, 2, 3, roar! And you've awakened the wild lion, and now you can see the possibilities. So the next time you're in front of an audience, you know that you have a voice that can move. You know that there's a story that's deep inside of you. And that story is what's been calling you all along. And those people that need to be told that they're enough and need to be told that they're special and that they're not alone and that there's somebody else that's taken the same hero's journey that they're on is there. And you will have the possibilities to be able to walk with them, to be able to speak with them in glory, without fear, without doubt, without anxiety, because you know that there's something deeper for you to be doing with your life. And that conviction and that courage will stand because you're willing to let your voice move people. You, ladies and gentlemen, are at a very unique place. Nowhere in the entire world are there 250 people that have this much potential to go out and use their voices to move people. Right now, you've awakened your wild lion. So when you go home on Monday, and when business happens again, and when work happens again, and all of these things, let the roar of that lion keep you alive. And know that there's the power of that voice to move you, to inspire you, not for you, for them, because the message is always about your audience. So I leave you with one question, and then I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer this question, and we'll wrap up this talk. The question is, how will you use your voice to move and inspire people? And in front of you is a little card that you will be able to answer that question. And what's important about you answering that right now is that you will have accountability with answering that question by you simply writing it down. And me and my colleague Kelly will actually personally email you back in accountability, because it's that important to see how you're going with your goal. If you want to go further with your wild lion, you can also press check mark that you want a one-on-one with either Kelly or I. And in addition to that, I will give you my Awaken the Wild Lion ebook by signing that. But take the challenge and write down right now, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap this talk up. You have 30 seconds. And now as you take this time, and you're taking this time to know that your voice is a voice that moves and inspires, capture once again that you are absolutely amazing, that you are important, that you are incredible, and that you have a story inside of you, and not just any story. It's a story that moves and inspires people. So today, with me, will you stand and accept this call to join a movement of voices that move people? Right on. Stand bold, stand firm, and awaken that wild lion within you so that you can use your voices to move people everywhere that you go.